And joining me now is security consultant, Group Captain Shehu Sadiq, retired. He joins us live from our Abuja studio. Now, the extraordinary meeting of the Ecowas has commenced in earnest in Abuja. We had the president a few minutes ago talking about the fact that the regional bloc is still opening to exploring all diplomatic avenues to be able to resolve the impasse in Niger. It would seem that any form of military action right now may not be providing the desired result. What are your thoughts in this regard, Group Captain?
Well, if the authority of head of states meeting resolved to pursue diplomacy, I would say to some of us that have studied the situation, is not unexpected. I think it is a rethink. In such issues, you know, the issue of use of force is always left as a last option. I think the mistake done, but it's always good when you realize a mistake, you retrace your steps, was that the Ecowas placed all its options all at once on the table. They put sanction, they cut relationship with the government, with the people who are in control of the country, you know, financial sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, cutting of electricity, and then said in the statement of 30th July, they may use all necessary actions, which may include this. Unfortunately, after that announcement, all the debate turned towards the option of military intervention. Now, military intervention poses a lot of problems. Do you get the buy-in of all the members? Even now with this meeting, we need to interrogate how many countries attended, how many were represented, and even if all of 15 are represented, when it actually comes to putting boots on the ground or deployment, how many are really ready to go to, to put their troops there? Again, we should always learn from history. The operation that has been talked about now, if at all, which I think we are not going to reach there, is what is called military intervention in defense of democracy. It is a relatively new concept. We've seen it only in the history of the world in about 3 terms: in Dominican Republic, in Grenada, in Panama, led by the United States. And what that lesson in these 3 instances told us is that the international community were unanimous that intervention militarily to restore democracy in itself is illegal. It is illegal against the United Nations Charter. And we have to also remember what has the United Nations Charter, what has the United Nations as a body which reserves the right to declare that a situation in any country poses a threat to international peace, and then approve. Because the Article 54 of Article 53 of the United Nations Charter said there is no any enforcement action that can be taken anywhere in the world by any regional body unless it is approved by the United Nations. All the statements, the United Nations has released about 3 or 5 statements regarding this Niger issue. It has stopped short of saying that it supports any military or use of force. What it has said always is that it supports the mediation efforts being done. So why do we see that? It means apart from the difficulty of maybe getting agreements for all the ECOWAS members, apart from the internal, you know, situation of each of the countries that is in there, we see the United Nations staying away. So I think if the ECOWAS members, we will not preempt them, but the ECOWAS leaders finally resolve that the best way to go is to put that military intervention at the back and continue this negotiation.
The military intervention, Group Captain, has always been at the back. There's a long list, you know, like you mentioned earlier, and then the ECOWAS leadership has insisted that a military action would be a form of last resort. And perhaps the reason why it came to the front burner was because a 7-day ultimatum was given. But should ECOMOG rather now decided to put boots on the ground, talk to us about, you know, the rules of engagement, particularly in a peculiar situation in Niger where it would seem the junta has an overwhelming support of the people. It has now formed its government with 21 ministers and a prime minister who used to be a representative of the African Development Bank. How do you use force when the people seem to be behind the junta?
The issue you raise, this is what makes the issue of even, using the force very more difficult. You have a situation where the government, well, I wouldn't say the majority, but I can say that the people who did the coup, they have the support of a substantial part of the Niger population. Now, how did they do that? After the coup, I don't want to believe they had as many people as they have now that are supporting the coup. But they were, I can say, very cunning enough to coin it that, look, this coup, we did it to extricate you from the stranglehold of a colonial master, which is France. We are doing it in your own interest. And I think what we see happening is that gradually the people in Niger started buying into that decision. Up to now, it is not, we cannot say it is 100% of people of Niger. It can never be like that. But they have gotten a substantial part of the population behind them. Now, it would have been easy for any intervening force if the people inside the country are really opposing the people who took power. But where you have a large chunk of the population supporting the people in power, then it makes it difficult. Because now you are not fighting an unpopular junta. No, you are fighting a group that has a very big support from the people on the basis that they are extricating the country, they are fighting for the common man. So this makes it very difficult. In any case, the option of military intervention, like I said, comes with a lot of risks. Nigeria, we have to understand the very difficult situation that the president of Nigeria is. On the one hand, he happens to be the head of Ecowas, which through its protocol on this intervention have pre-agreed that whenever, that is what the protocol said, Article 10, I think, whenever there is any attempt or either an actual coup or an attempted coup, the 15 countries signed that the ECOWAS, either the Authority of Head of States or the Council for Mediation and Security Council, they can sit down and decide what is happening in country A is an attempted coup or is a coup, and then we can intervene. Unfortunately, including Niger, all of them, they have signed this document. So on the one hand, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, as the chairman, wants to show that, look, we have to hold people binding on this agreement that they sign. That is on the other hand. But then on the other hand, for Nigeria in particular, even though it is not a Nigeria versus Niger something, I always want to underline that. It's an ECOWAS decision. But after ECOWAS decision, every country, every member of the ECOWAS has its own peculiarities. Talking of Nigeria, the internal dynamics and history has shown for any country to contemplate any action outside its shores, it also has to factor in the domestic environment. The domestic environment, what we are seeing since this started, Nigeria, all the cultural groups, religious groups, and other and even the Senate, what we are hearing from them is that Nigeria in general does not support a military intervention. Now, that will make it very difficult for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to forge ahead. Because when we see, even from history, if you look at the American intervention in Vietnam, what eventually led to failure and the American withdrawal is that even the internal, situation in the country, people does not support. So there are a lot of risks. It is not a matter whether the people are right or the government are right or no. Once the internal population themselves, they are against their own government involved in a foreign operation, then there are extra risk for the president to go ahead. So this one I'm talking in terms of Nigeria. But I also believe all the other ECOWAS countries will also weigh their options if at all it comes to deployment of a force. But again, I said it is good to look at the body language of the United Nations.
Very quickly, and hold you for a minute. We're just going to take a short break, and then when we return, we'll explore more angles to this story. Stay with us. TVC News at 1, and we're following developments in Niger Republic. I'm joined by Group Captain Shehu Sadiq, who's live at our studio in Abuja. Group Captain, we're following some new developments. We're hearing that the former rebel leader and politician Risa Ejibola may have launched a movement opposing the junta, perhaps the first sign of internal resistance to the army rule in that part of the country. Also, yesterday, the 14th Emir of Kano, for the first time, had a sit-down with the military leader in Niger. Envoy from Nigeria, the U.S., African Union, and even ECOWAS had failed in the past. Is this sign that perhaps diplomatic channels are opening up in Niger?
Hello, I didn't get your question, please.
I'm asking if the meeting between the military leader in Niger and the 14th Emir of Kano was good sign that diplomatic channels are opening up in that regard.
Well, yes, in diplomacy and such issues, diplomats will talk about multi-track diplomacy. What is about multi-track? Sometimes you did at the national level with national representations, But sometimes you find also people that are not within the government circle, they may act as intermediaries when there's such a problem. Whenever there is any problem, the first thing you do, you identify the stakeholders. Who are those people? Like human beings, every human being has some levers. Some levers may be religious, some may be social, some may be family. What I mean levers is an opening through which you can talk with somebody. There could be an argument, I cannot talk with Mr. A, but I have Mr. B who knows Mr. A and knows Mr. B. He can be an intermediary. So I think what the former emir of Kano did was to, take part in this what is called multi-track diplomacy. Could be, say, track 7 or even track 9. He went, I think, with some leverage that he has, either for religious power or traditional power, and we are lucky to see this has happened. Because it is a welcome development, given that we have that the earlier, official delegation sent by Ecowas did not receive, a favorable response from the people. So it is a good thing. And we think, again, like I said, we still have to come back to this talk and talk and talk. Even though the deadline has been given, there's nothing wrong with extending another deadline and then continue to identify people either within or outside government that has relationships. Every human being has somebody that can talk to him and then he will listen. So we have to look for more of such people that will intervene. If they don't meet ECOWAS on one-on-one, there are other people that they will be able to talk to.
Absolutely. Perhaps we now have to look forward to the resolution of ECOWAS's second extraordinary meeting, which according to the president in Nigeria will be a defining moment in what ECOWAS is set to do going forward. Group Captain Shehu Sadiq, retired security consultant, thank you for talking to us on the news this hour.